Hi there, I'm a gamer, and I'll prove it to you by revealing that Rayman on the PlayStation 1 is the most difficult game I have ever played. Alright, okay, hear me out. You get about 3 lives to scale an entire mountain, defeating multiple ranked bosses, and navigating brutal platforming sections. And on top of that, you die enough times, your progress is wiped out, and you go back to the start. And if you don't believe me, one reviewer I read even called the game sadistic. And this was a 90s game, aimed at children. So you might be thinking, why are you talking about this? It's a game from 30 years ago. Well, it's just that it got me thinking about the great debate between gamers today about whether hard games should have easier modes to make them more accessible. And so, viewer, we're going to solve this great debate today by telling you exactly why the video game difficulty problem is a myth. I have to, because it's the title of the video. Over the years, like many people, I've played on normal mode games like Arkham Knight or God of War, because, put quite simply, those modes made you feel unstoppable. You could plough through droves of enemies with barely even a scratch and complete the game with not much difficulty. And it made you feel like those characters. I mean, when is it that you ever watch Batman really struggle whenever you're watching a film in combat, other than Bane? But after a while you get used to the controls, you get used to the gameplay, you've got all the gear, you've got all the upgrades, and you become bored. Treat the Leviathan axe like it's a boomerang. So, you crank the difficulty up to hard, or God forbid grounded mode, and you look about as brave as Jack Sparrow before you shit yourself with indignation. Shit. Can I swear on YouTube? I wanted to focus first on what hard difficulty is and how it makes the game better. Witcher 3, for instance, on a harder difficulty makes you plan far more strategically for fights. Whether you have to craft more potions, whether you have to read the bestiary, whether you have to improve your spells. It is an antidote to the bullet sponge problem, where, like when you fight the humans, you just continuously hit them over and over and over and over and again. Over and over and over again. After all, preparing to fight a griffin, or a spectre, or a vampire isn't supposed to be easy. And on the hard mode you'll die in just a few hits, but if you manage to really master the gameplay, and if you've really prepared well enough, you can actually have a much better experience because you feel that you've actually overcome something, you've actually achieved something. Speaking of the bullet sponge problem, Ghost of Tsushima actually has a really interesting way to handle this. I started on normal mode like the other games, which was great, because like most samurais, I felt invincible. I could plough through enemies no problem, parrying was easy, enemies would go down in a couple of hits, and you really felt like you're untouchable. But then I was told to try it on lethal mode, which is quite a unique mode compared to a lot of the other games out there. See, instead of actually making every opponent you fight borderline invincible, the developers actually did something really interesting. They made Jin Sakai, the main character of the story, die in 1, maybe 2 hits, depends on your armour. But more interestingly, they did the same for your enemies. So it was this game of high risk, high reward, perfect parry, well-timed strike. That was it. But you slip up once, you're done for. I spent the first few hours dying as soon as anyone laid a hand on me. So I actually leaned into the stealth section, tried to avoid fights where I could, and I actually ended up leaning into the game's core themes, because the whole core theme about Ghost of Tsushima is Jin Sakai, a noble samurai defending his land against the Mongols. But his uncle, Lord Shimura, completely objected to the way that he went about warfare. They were completely outnumbered, they were outgunned, so Jin would stealthily sneak around camps and kill his enemies from behind, which is not the samurai way, it's not the honourable way, but it was the best way that they could fight back, was with guerrilla warfare, instead of facing your opponents head on, which, if you saw the start of the game, didn't work out that well. But it really brought the game to life. It really made that decision matter, whether I was going to go in stealth, or whether I was going to face up to my opponents. But one game that interestingly had a hard mode to start with, purely on its own, but made the switch later on, was Sifu. Not only did this revenge romp come with one ball-aching difficulty, but every time you died, you aged, and every time you aged, it would multiply multiple times, or double, every single time that you died. So before you knew it, you were a 20-year-old seeking out for revenge. Once it reached a certain age, that was you. Game over. I died many times, and on a couple of occasions, Had to start right back at the beginning. But this game, like Tsushima, uses hard mode to lean into its premise. And when I finally completed the game, I felt this real sense of relief. You know, I wasn't Jack Sparrow anymore, I was Neo.
I know Kung Fu.
But that wasn't the end. Sifu had one more trick up its sleeve. It offered a second playthrough. But this time, instead of killing the bosses, you had to spare them. And in sparing them, thus completed the circle of redemption for your character. That revenge would consume your whole life if you let it. It's like the publisher Slowclap said, the whole point about Sifu wasn't about completing the game, it was about mastering it. Now let's take a little wander over into the other side of gaming, which are games that excel in easy mode. Some people call them, I think it's a bit derogatory, but they do call them comfort games. Games that you just go in to escape. There's no sense of combat, there's no sense of exploration, there's no sense of gearing up. Your whole point is to just exist in this game. The first category I like of Big Brother inspired Sims or Tamagotchi love child Animal Crossing. And then there are a long list of Lego games which I've played most of, where 2 buttons do everything and it's a basic walkthrough. But the whole point about Lego games is that you can relive your favourite moments from films or TV shows, Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Marvel, blah 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 blah.
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it!
Without having to build these realistic worlds with this ultra realistic graphics. So then the second category I want to focus on is games that do have harder difficulty settings, but they play out more like cinematic experiences rather than really difficult challenges. These like anti-Souls games are a bit like Spider-Man, Uncharted, I would even go as far to say Red Dead Redemption 2. While From Software does everything in its power to deny you full access to a game you paid 60 quid for, these games basically roll out the red carpet. They're more cinematic experiences, they have extensive cutscenes, they've got quick time events that, God forbid you have to press X a million times. They almost like to create the illusion that you're playing a game a lot of the time than playing a game. For example, they have extensive tutorials, assisted aiming, the ability to heal automatically outside of combat. They feel more like roller coasters. I include actually Arkham Asylum in that as well. These are all games I love, but they're just games that are meant to be experienced like a cinematic event. They want you to see the story from start to finish. Uncharted is a bit like an Indiana Jones game or a Tomb Raider game. Red Dead Redemption, good, the bad and the ugly. Spider-Man.
Why'd you do that?
These games can go either way. You can crank up the difficulty to hard mode, you can play in easy mode, but there's a reason that the developers have put these difficulty levels here, and that is how they name it. And they don't call it easy mode, they call it story mode. When you think about it, if you've got a game that you've ploughed $200 to $300 million into, and you've got people playing it and they struggle to access the full level of the game, it feels like you're almost flushing money down the toilet. Such massive productions that they're almost like huge cutscenes with gameplay in between, and the most guilty of that is Last of Us Part 2, which I think is about 3.5 hours of combat in a 25-hour game. So playing these games on a harder difficulty can actually really kill the momentum and the illusion and the immersion of the game. Because if you're watching a movie, you're sweeping along in a feel-good mass murdering romp as Nathan Drake. You're on the search for treasure, but you keep dying of 32 caliber natural causes. It can dampen the fun if you have to do these sections over and over and over again. If you have to go through these cutscenes over and over and over again, it can really kill the momentum. You want to see where the story goes, you want to see what happens to the characters, you want to be immersed, you want to escape, but you're just not allowed to. It's a bit like Arnold Schwarzenegger dying in the first 5 minutes of Predator before he gets to fight the vagina monster. What's it called? Predator. Just Predator.
You one ugly motherfucker.
Then there are the Mavericks, which are the reason this video even exists. Games have no adjustable difficulty level, it's boot the game up, go fuck yourself. The Souls games, obviously, are the ones that carry the torch in this area. Dark Souls to Elden Ring, these are unfathomably difficult, made to separate the weak from the Chad. Is that how you say it? Those who make it to the end and complete the game call themselves real gamers, and they just fawn it over the rest of us mere mortals. I have to admit, I have only played a Souls game for probably the best part of 2 hours, and I just could not deal with it. The idea of spending 3 days trying to beat a single boss just doesn't appeal to me whatsoever. 16-year-old me, yeah, but I'm now 56?
That's possibly true.
But the debate reared its ugly head again when Silksong came out in October. People just sat in two camps. Camp A, this game is a masterpiece, and the nose-bleeding difficulty only adds to the immersion of being stuck in the depths of Farloom. In Camp 2, this game is hard and it means it excludes less experienced gamers like me who'd get laughed at work if they were lucky enough to have a job. But for me, these games perfectly fit their tone. Yes, they don't have an adjustable difficulty, but the whole atmosphere of the game wouldn't sit right if it was a simple walkthrough. These are dark, depressing, miserable places with really intricate networks and pathways, massive maps, varied enemies. The combat is half the battle, the other half is the exploration. But sometimes the exploration is great because you know there's danger around every corner. We've looked at hard mode, we've looked at easy mode, and we've looked at fuck you mode. If it were up to me, I certainly side on the more difficult games. In my opinion, it just allows you to embrace the experience and immerse yourself. You get to feel the joy of mastering skills and techniques. And there's nothing more satisfying than overcoming a huge challenge that you have worked hours and hours and hours to build up to. But then something actually happened over the summer that made me reconsider. My wife is not a gamer. She used to enjoy the odd game like Sims, but she hasn't played games in a long time. But we're both massive Harry Potter nerds, and naturally when Hogwarts Legacy came out, she was really tempted to give it a go. But the problem was, she was, quote, scared by the trailer. Not sure why. But ultimately she felt like gaming was inaccessible to someone that wasn't experienced at playing games. Then we thought about getting a Switch, which we bought, and then I told her all about story mode, how you can actually turn the game difficulty down to such an extent that really there's no challenge at all. It's all about embracing the experience. No pressure, just enjoyment. And she loved it. I'd completed the game before, so she'd come up to me and ask me questions about where to go, where to get certain items, what was in which area, and just questions about the castle itself and all the lands around it. But what was really more important is that she actually picked a different house than I did and explored areas of the map that I hadn't been to before. So I could relive the game and enjoy the experience all over again through someone else's eyes because the game allowed her to do that. A door that felt closed all of a sudden felt open. And I think that's what gaming is all about, welcoming people into fantastic worlds. So, to put this rambling into context, difficulty isn't a badge of honour. It's just a tool for experience. If the setting wasn't adjustable, my wife would have never played the game. Now she can build herself her own Reddit dungeon. And who knows, after a few hours more of playing it, she might even up the difficulty settings. The whole idea of having a set difficulty, i.e. hard, could inadvertently be gatekeeping those on the outside looking in, hoping to enter the gaming sphere. It's different spices for different girls.
Oh, nice one, Clifford. You nearly had us there.
Some games are just not for certain people, and there's nothing wrong with that. Anyway, that's it for today's video, the first video. So thank you for watching if you're still there. Not sure how to end these things. Did I just say bye or hang up or? No, you hang up.